everybody. My name is Mike Lovett. I'm the Program Director of Genomic Medicine at Imperial College London, and welcome to our information session for our degree course in Genomic Medicine at Imperial. If I could have the next slide, please. This is the central administrative team for Genomic Medicine, headed by me with my senior teaching fellow, Dr. Laura Colopy, and our administrator, Eleanor Walsh. And there's a small army of other people in the education division of Imperial, of NHLI, that help administer this program as well, some of whom are with us today. Let's move to the next slide, please. So our MSc features, as most do, interaction with well-known researchers, in our case, leading cutting-edge researchers in genomics and in genomic medicine. You are taught by these experts and from researchers across Imperial College and across different faculties and departments. All right, it's a blended teaching format, and I'll come to what that really means in a couple of minutes. And we offer full-time and part-time options. The majority of our students are full-time, doing a one-year MSc. I'll show you the sort of format of that and timetable in a minute. We have partnerships with Brunel University and the Institute of Cancer Research, who run one of our cancer modules. And we have a very diverse student body from many different backgrounds, including a substantial number of people who are healthcare professionals within the NHS. So that is, we think, one of our strengths, in that you get the perspective from very diverse backgrounds. Next slide, please. So there are 3 qualifications that you can get within the course of genomic medicine. The first is the 4-module postgraduate certificate. And that is the usual route that people who are funded within the NHS, funded by Health Education England, come into the program. I'll talk about that right at the end of this talk. Then there's an intermediate qualification, which does not involve a research project. That is 8 modules. So that's the postgraduate diploma. And that's sort of an incremental step on the way to a full MSc, if that is your aspiration. Some people take that as their final qualification, and we understand that, and we perfectly cater for that. And then the vast majority of our students do the full MSc qualification, which is 8 top modules plus a 3-month research project. And the structure and background to that research project will also be the subject of this talk. Next slide, please. So, how do you enter this program? Well, you have to have at least a 2-1 degree in a relevant medical, biomedical, or healthcare subject. And you can apply for it before you've actually achieved that degree. We also have many international students and accept a variety of international qualifications, which are dictated by our admissions department about how your degree measures up in terms of firsts or 2-1s and things. Now, having said that 2-1 is the bar, in some cases, we consider different qualifications. We have people who are mature students who have done different things. We have people who may have come from different backgrounds. We've had several people who have a finance background or venture capitalists, things like that. And depending on their motivation, their proven motivation, their experience and their knowledge and their performance in the admissions interview, we can make special cases for them. And we've had a lot of those people through our programs who have gone on very successfully to do great things in genomic medicine. So the motivation for pursuing genomic medicine is very, very front and center in our admission process. Next slide, please. So how do you do this? The applications are submitted to the centralized Imperial College admissions system. They are reviewed by a postgraduate team there who ensure that the educational and experience requirements are met. They then come to us, and we, as a genomic medicine team, review them and then invite about something like 80 or 90% of those people to an interview. And then from that interview, historically, about 50% are admitted into the program. The interviews are done between me and usually a senior teaching fellow or another member of the administrative staff. They last about 20 minutes. You will be expected to be able to discuss a research paper that we give to you, and you'll be asked many other questions, and we'll get an opportunity to ask your own questions. And then we notify you, sometimes within a week, but usually within 2 weeks, about a decision to admit you or not. Next slide, please. This rather complicated slide, and by the way, these slides will be posted on the web for you to look at, and I believe this is going to be uploaded to YouTube as well. So you'll be able to look at it at your leisure. But it shows along the top the academic year, starting in October, ending at the end of September in the next year, for a full-time MSc. And you can see in these boxes going along here that there are a series of modules, each of which is 1 month in length. And that it involves 3 weeks of self-directed study and 1 week of face-to-face teaching, which is mandatory for you to attend. So you can't take this course completely online. You take each of these modules in turn, and you can see that in January and in March, there are multiple modules which you have to choose between. So, for example, in January, there's a module on ethics, and there's also a module called Genomics and the Patient, which is how to communicate genomics data to patients. And you have to choose between those two in January, and you have to choose between 4 in March. The net effect is that to do the whole MSc, you have to do 8 modules. The fundamentals right at the beginning of the year, everybody takes, whether they're part-time or full-time. And then if you're doing a full-time MSc, you would start the research project in June and finish it in September. So at the end of each module, you submit the assessment online. The assessments are usually critical evaluations of something. It varies from module to module, but usually that 4th week of the module, you are doing a lot of preparing that assessment, submitting it at the end of that 4-week period, and then you are done and dusted. You can move on to the next module without something hanging over your head. So there is no final exam at the end of the coursework, but there is that assessment for every single module on a monthly basis. Next slide, please. So this really covers what I've already told you. There are elective modules. You have to specify these pretty much when you enter the program. And the part-time MScs, who are mostly Health Education England, NHS people, or postgraduate diploma or postgraduate certificate students, take the very same modules as the full-time MScs, but they may do them in a different order because the degree may be spanned out over a longer period. So we frequently get asked what is self-directed learning, because there's 3 weeks of this. It's about 30 hours of course material that have to be completed in your own time, and I'm talking per week in the allocated weeks. That may consist of lectures or courses or quizzes or, in some cases, online discussion. What's important here is the second week usually is the face-to-face teaching week. And face-to-face teaching is very much devoted towards discussions, journal clubs, and concepts that can be complicated and difficult to understand, so that you have a lot of discussion and face-to-face with the lecturers to understand the background and really get it figured out. But you need to complete the week one content to be competent to understand the face-to-face material. Next slide, please. So at the end of the 8 weeks, or the 8 months, the 8 modules, you are ready to do your research project. So as you will know, I think, if you're attending this webinar, genomic medicine is a very broad field, covers every kind of organ system and disease state in human beings. And that expands all of our departments. Sometimes we have collaborations with places like engineering and things like that. So it's not just medicine. There's always a wide variety of projects being undertaken by our students, including at other institutions, sometimes within London and sometimes further afield. The research project is a large part of your overall marks for the MSc. It comprises a written dissertation, which is 80% of the marks, and an oral presentation, a 15-minute oral presentation that comprises 20% of the marks. So we welcome projects from other institutions and from industry, and we've had many of these in the past. You need to present a project proposal, a written project proposal, that will be then approved, and then you can start the project and you're off on that 14-week stint to complete that research. As you can see here, we've had student projects at multiple institutions abroad, in the US, in Japan, in Hong Kong, in the Crick Institute, in the Turing Institute, many, many institutions that aren't even listed here. Next slide, please. Now, we are not paternalistic about our assignment of research projects. It is up to the student to be responsible for securing their own research project. Having said that, we're not going to just drop you in at the deep end. We release every year a list of projects, and we have about 200 or so PIs who do active genomic research. So we list projects that they have offered, and that usually happens during the spring term. And then students may contact those PIs and say, I'm interested in this particular project, and essentially talk through it and see if there is a deal to be made there. Essentially, are you going to be accepted into that lab? And then you complete a research project proposal, and you're off and running once that is approved. So as I said, full-time students complete their project over the June to September interval. If you're an NHS employee, then you're going to do this degree over a 2-year period at a minimum. And you get a longer period to complete that because you're part-time. So you have 12 months to complete the project, although the amount of time you spend doing it is exactly the same as a full-time student, the 14 weeks. It's just spread out over a longer period. So you develop a suitable timeline and timetable with your PI based upon how the project is and your availability to do the project. And the presentations pretty much always take place 2 weeks after the dissertation submission. So we'll be seeing all of those in about the middle of September of this year for the current cohort. Next slide, please. So where do our students go? And we get asked this a lot, what are the outcomes, which is a very relevant and viable question. A very large number of our students coming in from a basic research background go on to do PhDs, not just at Imperial, but across the Southeast and sometimes in foreign institutions. So that is a really fertile ground for our students fulfilling their wishes to go into into deeper learning in genomic medicine. A substantial number of our students have been successful in the scientist training program. That's the NHS program, which is highly competitive. And they sometimes come back and give our students tips on how to circumnavigate that incredibly difficult and quite harsh admissions process. Then we have a lot of industry connections, and a lot of people come from industry to be trained in our genomic medicine program. Some is from as far away as Australia, come in from finance or venture capital or from other backgrounds. And Imperial is very much into making sure that these people are aided in their entrepreneurial skills. And if you want to look on the web, our advanced hack space, you will see how we try and nurture those innovative and entrepreneurial skills. All right, next slide, please. This lists for your information the various backup and welfare support systems, which we take extremely seriously for our students. We know that it's stressful doing a postgraduate degree, and it can be particularly stressful if you're holding down a full-time job and then coming in for a week every month, but having to do the full course load of an MSc. And this is not an MSc light. So this is not some sort of reduced content thing. This is full force Imperial MSc training. So it can get pretty stressful, but we're very, very sympathetic to that. So that just lists here the various people that you can avail yourself of if you are getting stressed in the course of this. Next slide. We also now have a few scholarships available, and this has a link for how to look at that. And the deadline for these applications is fast approaching. It's the 31st of May. Now, the scholarship will by no means, shape or form cover all the fees for an MSc, but they certainly help. So I would encourage you, if you are applying, to go and have a look at this and see if you think you are eligible. So I see this as a great mechanism, and hopefully we'll get more money into this in the coming years. And I think next slide, please, is just a series of links of where to go and look for various means of potentially looking at fees and seeing what the payment requirements are for an MSc in genomic medicine. Next slide, please. We have a presence on Instagram, and we have a nice long mailing list so that you can be kept informed. So click on this QR code and go in and join our Instagram group. Next slide, please. All right, so that covers the first part of this presentation. What I'm going to do right now is several of you have already sent in queries, which I'm going to answer. I'm going to read them out to you, and then I'm going to answer them. And then we will click back to discussing Health Education England and it's the way that funding stream works. So we'll talk about NHS and HEE in a minute or two. I'm just going to bring up my various questions and go through them one by one. Then after we've gone through all of that, I would welcome your specific questions, which you can either do vocally, or you can do in the chat on this webinar. So the first question is, I would like to get a deeper understanding of the application process and the expectations from prospective students. I would also like to get feedback on my current profile and achievements, and suggestions on what else should I demonstrate to enhance my applications. Well, let's deal with that in two parts. So I've told you quite a bit about the application process. I think if you look at the slides I've presented, you'll see how that works. The expectations are that you have a strong inquiring mind, and that you have what we consider good motivations to do genomic medicine. I'm certainly not going to give you feedback on your current profile and achievements. That's up to you. I'm not here to give you a tutorial on how to game the entrance process into an MSc. That is a matter of common sense. And really, that's what we're judging is your background, what you've achieved, and your personal statement. So I would keep that rational and real. So the second one is, I wonder whether molecular medicine study could be used in the field of genomic medicine. And it's very clear that yes, of course it could. A molecular medicine is very, very applicable to genomic medicine and involves the same source of understanding. So the next one is, where do graduates of this master's program typically end up working? And what roles do they usually take on in those companies? Well, we certainly are not dedicated to filling the workforce of big pharma. A lot of people do go that route, but a lot of people go back to academic medicine. A lot of people go into academia. A lot of people go into the pure scientific basic research field. And some go into other things, as I again alluded to, the financial sector, etc. So I've told you a little bit about that, but I would say, right now, the majority of our students coming out, about 25% are healthcare professionals who are going back to spread the word within their clinical practices and become genomics experts, sort of essentially information nodes within their own clinical sphere. And we've been doing that for years now. And we have many, many people who have successfully gone on to really apply genomics at the cutting edge of medicine. Would it be suitable to enroll in this program without a foundation in wet lab experiments? Wet lab experiments are far too overrated, I think. Somebody's been telling applicants that they have to have, advanced lab skills, and no such thing exists. You learn how to do a particular project, and you get taught it by the people in the lab, but you may shift to a different project and be completely, a novice at how to actually do those techniques. So laboratory wet lab experience is not as big a deal as you think. We've spent decades moving tiny amounts of liquid by micropipetters, and that is not our foundation in wet lab experiments. What is much more important is to gain a knowledge of how to handle yourself in a research environment. If you take a novice researcher and drop them into a research lab, it can be akin to dropping a live hand grenade in, because they may sow chaos in everything. So common sense and how to handle yourself in a research environment is much more important. And we certainly try and give you that to go on. So you have to be mature, you have to be sensible, and you have to be time management savvy. So we hope that we imbue that, but you have to realize that the lab skills you will learn in this MSc are confined mostly to your 14-week research project. The only thing we run as a lab, as a learning experience in real time, is a computer lab for bioinformatics. So you're not going to get some sort of thing with demonstrators and things like that, which gives you negligible wet lab experience anyway. But you will certainly get a comprehensive feel for how to handle yourself in a laboratory environment. The next question is, which campus will we primarily be based at? Well, that depends on the module leaders. Sometimes it's the Brompton campus in Chelsea, if the module leaders are there, which is where I and my team are based. But it may be at Hammersmith, which I think we're going to see that quite a few labs are moving towards Hammersmith. So you may see quite a lot of the teaching in lovely new space at Hammersmith. I've answered the next one, which is apart from our research projects, will we get lab sessions? No. You're very free to go around and ask PIs if you can work or just essentially shadow people. That's fairly rare. And it's quite reasonable why it's fairly rare. Every novice student taken into a lab takes up the time of somebody already in the lab. You don't get just dropped in there, handed a pipetter or a agar plate and told, go off and get your Nobel Prize. You have a lot of training and somebody has to train you. So for PIs to put that amount of effort and commitment in requires a lot and it asks a lot of them. So we don't require internships or rotations, but if you can, I'll certainly try and help you with them if you have a specific interest, but we don't do them as a matter of course. Then the next one says, how are courseworks going to work? Are we informed first week the module runs? I'm not sure what that really means, but if you're meaning when will the face-to-face in-person week be, we tell you right up front. So you will know, at the time that the first fundamentals module goes out, when you have to commit to be there. You might even know before that. Can it be done remotely via Zoom, etc., or blocks in London and others abroad? Again, I think what that means is, can you do it entirely remotely? No, you have to be in London, you have to be face-to-face, and attendance will be taken. And if you don't attend the face-to-face module, then you will be having a discussion with me and my team, and you may well fail that module. Can international students with bachelors of nursing degrees apply to the Genomic Medicine program? Yes, and we welcome them. Nursing is really at the front edge of providing genomic medicine and genomic medicine feedback to patients. So we have quite a large number of nurses in our program. We have a large number of qualified physicians, but we have midwives, we have all sorts of healthcare professionals. Then the next one, again, a little bit difficult to understand, but it says, does any bioinformatics master's student get admission in master's by research program in this course? Bioinformatics master students are very welcome to apply. They have to learn all the biological stuff that is required within the course, but they will have a real edge when they take the bioinformatics module. And indeed, within genomic medicine, bioinformatics is a real pillar and something that we encourage all our students to participate, pardon me, to participate in and have some skills in. Then somebody's asking about funding for NHS staff and how to apply. We're going to deal with that in a couple of minutes. Is the program keen on developing the student's research line of interest as final project, or does the student choose among a faculty's research line already in development? Well, this is a tough one because students come in and sometimes they have a very defined idea about what they want to do as a research project. It is vanishingly rare that what a student does in a 14-week master's research project becomes their life's work. It's also exceedingly rare that people do a PhD and then continue that for their entire life. It's much more frequent that people switch. And certainly you don't have to do something that you think is mapping out your career as a short master's project. We try and accommodate people's interest, but there's limited things that can be done. So you should, if you want to do some specific thing as a research project, then you should start exploring that on day one of the course. And we might be able to put you together with people who actually do those things. Imperial is vast and it has huge numbers of research groups which do practically anything you could think of in biomedical sciences. So if you give us enough lead time, we will try and help you with your aspired areas of interest. The other question was, what are our noted alumni? And there are many. And I think what we have to do is to put onto our website some examples of those. But we had the first genomics registrar in the whole of the UK. We have some people who are in the leading big time roles within the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, so on and so forth. And we certainly, pharmacy and pharmacogenomics are major focuses of us, and frequently places where people find positions in the industry. I'm going to move on to the next slide now, and then we'll take general questions. So could I get the next slide, please? All right, this is specific for people who are currently employed in the National Health Service, and to tell you a bit about the HEE application process. So this is money that is given to us, to our program, and to 6 others within England to sponsor NHS employees in a degree in genomic medicine. The way they give out this money is in 4 module amounts. So you initially apply for a certificate. So that's a 4 module increment. After you've done that, and once we get the next tranche of money coming in, we come back to you and we say, would you like to go to the diploma? And if you do, and if you are in good academic standing, meaning you've performed well in the course, then we allocate that money. And then you move up to that diploma. Coming in at the front end, coming in as a new applicant, you apply for a genomic medicine PG certificate. And if your application looks good, you'll be invited to an interview with us. So the first gatekeeper function is to get into the program, not to apply to HEE, apply to us. If you are successful, then usually you're placed on a waiting list. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because that means we're still figuring out how much money we have to allocate to our current students, and then we'll come back with everything we've left and allocate it to you. And the wait there isn't usually not very long, a couple of weeks maybe, until we know where our finances lie. So once we can confirm a funding allocation, we get back to you. Then you start on the HEE application process. The biggest thing there is getting your line manager to sign off on you doing this course, because you are saying for these multiple months in a year, you're going to have to go to face-to-face for an entire week. So you're going to have to allocate that time to be at Imperial learning face-to-face. And then we help you go through that application process with HEE. We liaise with them. We have a very good relationship with them. And we tell them the lists of people we've accepted, and then we help you expedite your application process through them. And then you do your initial module selection, because bear in mind, you're picking 4 modules in that first year or so. So you can spread those out. You don't have to do the first 4. You do have to do the fundamentals module. So that's October. You have to commit to that. The genomic medicine team, as I said, helps expedite your application. The HEE will contact your line manager to get the other forms, and then the scholarship letter will be sent to yourself and to us, and then you're confirmed for entry into October. So it's a fairly smooth entry process, but you still have to go through that initial interview process with us. All right, so I think we can turn off the slides, and let's have any questions that you might have. Please
so we've had lots and lots in the Q&A function, but if you prefer to speak verbally, please put your hand up and we will enable that. Otherwise, we'll start going through the ones that have been submitted in the Q&A.
So we've got one raised hand I can see from Dr. Deepak Sharma.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to speak now, Dr. Sharma.
Just unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me, sir?
Yep.
Okay. I am from Nepal and I have already done the PhD in biotechnology and now want to enhance my career in the field of genomic medicine, which is not available in Nepal. So will I get an opportunity to get the admission in Imperial College? I'm very much excited to join the Imperial College Genomic Medicine section.
Well, you need to just put in the application. There unfortunately, there's a lot of tuition fees involved from overseas countries, so you need to address that problem as well. But that is not part of our decision process in interviewing you. We want to know why you want to do this, and whether you fit with the way our training program works. So I would encourage you to go ahead and apply.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I would like to apply very soon, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Lovely. Did anybody else have a question they'd like to raise their hand for? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Lamida, and I'm working in a company that's contracted to the NHS. So I'm working within genomic medicine at this time.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering whether I would be considered as an NHS applicant or not.
You have to ask the NHS that. If you actually are an NHS paid employee, then you're fine. You could also just ask HEE. They will be able to tell you, and they're very helpful.
Okay, thank you. I had another question.
Yes.
So for applicants who are not quite meeting the academic requirements but have extensive experience in genomic medicine already, what kind of work experience would you say count towards like making a successful application?
Oh, I think that if you've been doing real genomic medicine, whether that's, it could be handling diagnostics, it could be any kind of thing like that. Not just like, a few weeks here or there, but you've actually had a substantial amount of time either in doing the lab work or in a dry lab setting. And we certainly, we value dry lab experience as much as wet lab experience. But it's mostly how you present that in your application and how you handle the interview. So if we come away from it feeling that you're highly committed and motivated, and you understand what you're getting into in the terms of, some people have a very strange viewpoint of what genomic medicine is. There's a lot of things in genomic medicine you can do and are like blasted miracles, for example, in oncology, but there are other areas that are still totally exploratory. So if you've got your head screwed on and you've got a good common sense viewpoint on where this is going and excellent motivation, then you've got a very good chance. We're not making, a 2-1 or whatever as an absolute strict barrier. We have had people who have been out of science for 10 or 20 years and have made a very convincing case of being able to do this and really wanting to do it, and have got through with flying colors. So we don't have a sort of, old-fashioned dinosaur idea of what it takes to go through an academic program.
Right. No, that's very helpful to hear. So my background has been a scientific bachelor's degree, and then I went down the kind of project management route in genomic medicine. So I've been working within the two of the GLHs in London, and now I feel like I want to understand the technical side of genomic medicine a bit better to get to those higher roles and be able to kind of establish myself as a competent manager and get to those more senior roles, basically.
Well, that sounds like a very good motivation. So go ahead and apply.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Monica, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah,
Great.
you can hear me, right?
We
Yep.
can. Yes.
Hi, I'm currently working full time. Just my query for the NHS staff. The first 4 module, is the initial module, do they have to be done on from October to January?
No.
It's just because you're doing Christmas.
No, definitely not. Right. So you have to do the first one. Everybody has to do the fundamentals.
October. Yeah.
And then you might say, oh, well, I don't want to do those next 3. I'll do them next year.
Okay.
You follow me? So you do have to eventually do them because there are a set of core modules that have to be done. But you may say, I'm going to skip to the January module or the February module or something like that. You see what I mean?
Okay.
You do want to do 4 in the first year.
Okay.
But you don't have to do them in order right through sort of, so that you have that 4 months in a row in which you have to take time off.
Yeah, that's what my concern was, because sometimes, with the festive period and stuff, and sometimes the staff leaves, the vacancy, it's not easy to cover.
Yep.
That's the only reason. And also, some personal point of view, but for example, so if I do the first 4 modules, like this year, then do I do the second 4 module in the following year and the project in the following year as well? So I get a break?
No, we usually manage to do it so that we can have enough money that you're able to get it all done in 2 years.
Including
right?
the project.
Including the project, right?
And
now, it is possible to do it in 3 years, but
Okay.
that's sort of the limits. But we... Sorry about that, it kicked me off again. It is possible to do it, and most people on HE money do it in 2 years.
Okay. That's fine. And my query, can the project, does it have to be, can it be work-based project?
Can it be a what, sorry?
Work-based project?
What do you mean by web-based?
No, work-based.
Oh, work-based. Oh, sorry. Yes,
Sorry.
and many are. So
Okay.
as long as they are what we would consider genomics, which is a very, very broad description, as I'm sure you know, but as long as they are what we consider genomics, we are willing, I've had a long history of doing this, in which people do work-based projects. Sometimes that's clinicians doing something in their own lab or in their own institution. Sometimes it's people who are working in a clinical lab. We certainly welcome those. What we would do is we would appoint an Imperial co-supervisor whose function really is to make sure it's to the right standard, and it usually is.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Great. We have a guest whose initials are SCP. Would you like to speak?
Hi, yes. I just wanted to ask, what is the duration of the face-to-face classes or requirement to attend face-to-face for each module?
It's an entire week, so that's about 35 hours of face-to-face. So it's roughly 9 to 5 every day.
Is that for each module?
Every module will have a face-to-face week. There's one module, which is research and professional skills, which is entirely online, but it is the exception. That's one of the optional modules. But every core module is 1 week of face-to-face and 3 weeks of remote learning.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Great. Hafiza?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi there.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you very much. I've been offered a place, full-time PG cert level. And the offer letter stated that it's from October to January, but if I would like to choose the modules into the second semester, do I have to change it to part-time PG cert?
This is no. Yeah, it would be part-time, but this is a complete glitch in admissions, which we're trying to figure out right now. Some person in admissions has got it into their head that if you're accepted to a cert, then you have to do the first 4 modules. That's rubbish, as we just talked about. You have to do the fundamentals, but then you can pick any other 3 to do in that 1 year. So we are trying to get them to modify all these offer letters, because this is just a foul up made by them. This should be a part-time cert, and you should be able to complete that in the first academic year.
Oh, that's great, because I have to put in an application to my employer. So they are referring to that letter. So it's a bit difficult for me to
So
explain.
we've been trying. Eleanor can maybe address this better, but I think this is just an administrative foul up. They don't understand the complexities of this course, where we have people coming in who are doing this sort of, moving the modules around a little bit. So we're trying to take care of it, and you should be receiving a different letter.
Okay, that's great. So if I were to just be in London during the physical weeks and the rest from my home country, is it advisable to do that? And do I need a
It's
visa
perfectly
for
fine
that?
to do that. A lot of people do it.
Oh, okay.
So we don't, you're required to be there for that week, but as long as you can do the work and cover all those things, we will, we check to see that people are being engaged during those remote learning weeks. So it's not like we just let you go off and fly solo completely. But if you can do it from your home base, that's fine.
Okay, that's great. Do I need a visa, student visa for that?
Yeah, you do for the 1 weeks. Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's great then. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. One student has asked, when is the deadline for applications, Mike?
We keep on interviewing pretty much through August. So once we get to the end of August, I think that's when we'll be probably closing our doors on this year's admissions.
Yeah. Okay. Another person has asked a question regarding HEE, and they've said, do you need to commit to the full-time MSc when you join on the PG cert? Or
No, certainly not. In fact, it's because of HEEs, they moved the goalposts on us. What they did initially was give us money for full MSCs. And we had a whole bunch of people who came through and were funded right from the start. In their new format, they want to fund certificates. And then, if people want to stay and do the diploma, they'll fund the diploma. And then if people want to stay and do the whole thing, then they'll fund that. So they do it in incremental steps. I don't know why, but I think there must be certain people who just want to get the certificate and say, oh, I've got something in genomic medicine. We much prefer people to be doing the full masters. And that's why we do it the way we do it. We keep on coming back and asking, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Rather than just, cut the legs out from under you at cert. So it really, we encourage people, but you don't have to sign up for the MSc at the beginning. You sign up for the certificate.
Somebody has asked, since the learning is mostly online, would the students get opportunities to interact with peers and to make study groups other than group discussions?
Yes, and in fact, our students have, various online, some years more so than others, but we encourage that as well. We also have weekly, even, during the online weeks, we have drop-in sessions where you can ask myself and Eleanor and Laura questions about what's going on, and also especially about the assessments and things like that. So we very much encourage, cohort building among our students, and the face-to-face week is very much devoted to that, because it's not a matter of just sitting there and listening to a lecture that you could easily have watched online. We have a lot of discussion groups, we have a lot of journal clubs, we have a lot of interaction. So it's meant to build cohorts and meant to build interactions.
Another person has asked, would a non-lab undergrad dissertation affect their chances of joining the MSc?
Not at all. Undergraduate dissertations are not making you into the greatest lab rat on the face of this planet. So disabuse yourself of that if you even vaguely think that. Even after you've done a PhD, you may be completely useless in the lab. So this whole idea about wet lab versus dry lab, a lot of people will prefer to take students who are dry lab and have computational skills because they already know how to do some coding. So it depends on the program, but we don't discriminate at all. So if you've done a dry lab project, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. A few people have asked, if you've already done the cert at a different university, can you join the DIP or MSc with us?
Yes, but I can't remember how many. You might know, Eleanor, or maybe Jen does. We can transfer a certain number of modules, but I'm not sure it's as many as 4. We'll have to get back to you on that.
Yes, if you could, whoever that was, if you just follow up by emailing the genomic inbox, and then we can direct your query directly on to registry.
Yeah.
Another person has asked, they are interested in genetics or rare diseases and would like to go on to contribute to making gene therapies in the future. They only have a bachelor's in biomedical science and are currently working as an MLA. Would they be a suitable candidate for the course?
Sure. I mean, you've got to start somewhere. And, we have a lot of people who have bachelor's degrees in diverse places.
Mm-hmm.
And, the therapeutic part, we do an optional module on genomic therapeutics. And we have a sister program called Genes, Drugs, and Stem Cells, which is administered by our own same department. So you do get some crosstalk with that, but we are much more focused on genomic medicine as a wide field. But you would be ideally suited to go into, some sort of therapeutic program. That's good.
Yep. Another question is, what is the main difference in the full-time and the part-time course in terms of time given to cover the modules? Also, who are all eligible to apply for the part-time course?
Well, if you are funding yourself, you're totally free to do the part-time course. It's just that you're going to do it over 2 years, and most of the part-time people are HEE funded because of the way they are funding it in this 4-module chunks. And there is no difference at all in the time commitment in terms of each month. So if let's say you do opt to do all 4 of your cert modules in the time between October and Christmas, although I think that I think that's 4 modules. But if you do that, then you have exactly the same face-to-face commitments as a full-time student. What you might do is you might do the fundamentals and then maybe 1 other module before Christmas and then 2 more in the new year. Then your time commitment face-to-face is 1 week for each of those months for the ones you're taking.
Great. There's just a few more. Someone's asked, outside of the NHS, which sector does the genomic medicine direct to in terms of employment?
What do you mean by sector? It's everywhere. Genomic medicine, I mean, we have a large number of our students who are going back into the NHS and making a very big difference to the way that genomic medicine is applied there. We have a very large number of people doing advanced PhDs, usually in the Golden Triangle, meaning Oxford, Cambridge, and the 3 big universities in London, Imperial, UCL, and King's. So we have large numbers of people going into academic science. We have then a substantial number going into the scientist training program within the NHS, which is an entirely different thing. That's not sort of frontline taking care of patients. That's the scientific background, the scientific heads of the NHS. We have people who are in pharma, So they mostly go back and either get promoted into something bigger and more visionary, or become sort of heads of particular genomic medicine enterprises, because they've been trained now. They really know the waterfront. But it's very, very diverse. It's not just, we are certainly not into vocational training. We do education, and we do it at the cutting edge. So what we're trying to do is enable you to keep on going on this. What we want is you to be able to know how to critically evaluate genomic medicine and stay up to date, so that you're not just kind of walking out the door in stasis and you never learn another thing. And that covers everything. It covers all sorts of science and medicine.
Great. And the last kind of questions, one person has asked, they have no health-related experience, but they have a degree in biomedical science. How else can they improve their chance of getting in?
You're not going to get a better chance by having health-related experience, other than being an NHS employee, maybe. To come into the program, we want people who have already got some understanding. Now, that does not mean training. That means that you've really looked into it and understand where genomic medicine is going, and a motivation. So we're looking for people who can, who can pass the test of, for example, reading the paper and being able to critically evaluate it. One of the things about learning science is that you go through these different transitions, in which when you're an undergraduate, you tend to believe papers just straight off. It's like that's God's truth. And as you become a postgraduate, and as you go into a PhD and higher, then you begin to say, I wonder.
Great. I think that's all of our questions for now. If anyone else does have any, please just send them to our inbox and we will get back to you as soon as we can.
All right. Well, good luck to you all, and we hope to hear from you.